be a one-way feed for me to then answer your questions. So I'm going to start off with a little bit of philosophy and pontification around why meditation and why meditation on a day like today. So meditation in and of itself does not give a quote answer.
Made it through it. Just was scrambling because I got people emailing me Tish questions, so I'm copying them and pasting them in the. Let me make sure I'm muted here.
So we're going to get started here with kind of talking about why meditation is so important. It helps to clear the space. It helps to clear mental space for the quote divine or ineffable, as Abraham Joshua Heschel would say, to enter, to fill that space. Meditation doesn't give us the answers per se. It clears the space. It gives us the means for such answers to enter. And why is that so important on a day like Yom Kippur? It's really important because we're asked to contemplate sentiments such as forgiveness, such as where we missed the mark. And while such sentiments can be contemplated on an intellectual level, we're really benefited from diving a little bit deeper into a level where the intellect doesn't quite hit. And in order to do that, we have to quiet the intellect and thought world a little bit to enter into that more spiritual realm. So I'm going to ask if you do have a journal, if you have some kind of pad of paper to write on, to get that out. And if you don't and you wish to not participate using the journal, you can just hold off until we begin the meditation. But if you do have a journal, grab that. And we're going to split our journal up into 3 sections. Section 1 is going to be titled Asking for Forgiveness. Section 2 is going to be titled Forgiving Others. And section 3 is going to be titled Forgiving the Self. Now I'm just going to dive through on what each of these kind of indicate. So asking for forgiveness is going to be a section where we can write either specific individuals that we wish to ask for forgiveness, or kind of just write about the general idea of what it would be like to ask for forgiveness. Now, the second section, forgiving others, is what happens when those roles are reversed, when someone comes to us asking to be forgiven. That's a different muscle. And then section 3, forgiving the self, is the most abstract and difficult because the entity, the individual doing the forgiving and the entity being forgiven are the same. It's us. And so that's really tough to play both roles. What does it look like to forgive and be forgiven at the same time? So I'm going to give you about 5 minutes or so to write in those 3 sections: asking for forgiveness, forgiving others, and for forgiving the self. Either writing specific circumstances or more philosophical abstractions on those 3 ideas. And in 5 minutes, we will begin the journaling practice. And if you do see me look away, that's just me looking at the screen at comments. So please feel free to take the time to journal now, and we will return in a few minutes to begin the meditation. So we're going to take another 30 seconds or so to wrap up whatever we're journaling. I understand that this journaling theme could occupy the whole session on its own. It's a very dense theme of forgiveness, but we're going to return to that after the meditation portion of this. Just get some last notes down and then find a space where you can comfortably sit for the meditation. So in terms of what to do with your hands, I like to either do palms facing down on my lap or palms facing up on my lap. I personally close my eyes when I meditate. If you do not feel comfortable with that for some reason, just find a space on the ground or at a wall to gaze at if you're in nature, out in nature. Closing your eyes does remove the visual stimuli and helps you have the best chance possible of looking inwards. Now, I just want to note that sometimes being still and silent can be a little bit scary and difficult because we're used to being in a constant state of doing. And when we suddenly stop, it can be jarring. And so I just want to acknowledge that you can cut yourself some slack if it takes a moment to settle in. And to allow for such a moment, we're just going to notice what it's like to be silent and still. Start to observe what it's like to transition from a state of doing into an ambiguous state of being, to cease making noise in our surroundings and to contribute to a sense of stillness. Just start to settle into that idea, and I'll return in a minute to begin the formal practice. Start to bring your attention to your breath. The idea here is to integrate the breath as the central point of focus in this practice. You're going to start really basic. Just start to notice the simple fact that you're even breathing right now. Noticing how nothing has changed. You were breathing before, you're breathing now. The only thing that has shifted is you're directing your awareness towards the fact that you're breathing right now. And start to notice how the breath feels physically in your body. The body is a conduit for the breath. And as a result, there's physical sensations that arise with each inhale and exhale. Start to tap into what you feel physically when you breathe. We're going to move through a couple breathing exercises now designed to prepare our psyche for the more substantive formal practice. The first one is going to be an inhale in through the nose, purse your lips as if you're whistling, and let out the exhale as slowly as you can through pursed lips. Again, in through the nose, out slowly through pursed lips. Returning to a breath in and out through the nose if that feels natural to you. And this next exercise is going to be an inhale in through the nose. When you go to breathe out, the focus here is going to be on finishing the exhale, letting out all of the air, completing what you set out to do. And when you finish the exhale, pause for a moment to create a space there between the end of the exhale and the start of the next inhale, a moment of no breath. Observe it, then breathe in, all the air out, 1 second pause and repeat. And lastly, just coming back to a standard breath that falls naturally for you. You're just going to tap into your sense of sound now. Just start to notice that your breath makes a sound, not analyzing it, or diving into thoughts about it. Just noticing that your breath has a sound. So we're going to move into the more substantive core part of the practice now, where we bring in something called a mantra, which is just a collection of words or numbers or phrases that we use to repeat with each breath in and each breath out. I'm going to offer a suggested mantra that also leaves space for you to make it your own. When we breathe in, I'm going to suggest that you say to yourself, breathing in forgiveness. When you breathe out, I want you to pick some kind of word or phrase that represents what forgiveness feels to you. So for example, it could be breathing in forgiveness, breathing out, I am calm. Breathing in forgiveness, breathing out, I am strong. Or breathing in forgiveness, breathing out, I start anew. It can be any kind of completed phrase, but I want to leave space for you to make it your own. Once you pick a mantra to integrate into your being, we're going to practice relating to our thoughts in a more nuanced manner. And whenever you think or get distracted, which will inevitably happen, pause that mantra. Notice that you're thinking by acknowledging it as thinking. Just say the word thinking to yourself. And then come right back to that mantra that you consciously chose. Repeat that process of stopping, noticing, and returning whenever a thought arises. I'm going to mute myself and practice alongside you, and I will return in a little bit to cap off the practice. And we're going to ease out of that mantra practice now. And we're going to cap off with something called a visualization practice. And to the best of your ability, you're going to imagine that your consciousness, the observer of your existence, imagine that that could leave your body for a second and imagine that you could observe yourself in the surroundings you're in now. So imagine that you could have a visual of yourself in your current surroundings. And just start to observe the various nuances and intricacies of yourself in the surroundings you're in from different angles. And I want you to imagine that that consciousness, that observer of yourself, can get up really close to one of your ears. And I want you to imagine that you could whisper some words or phrases that you think you need to hear the most right now. And in your own time, at your own pace, ease out of the meditation practice, getting some movement back in your body. And the first thing that we're going to do upon returning to the space is we're going to get back to the journal. And we're going to go back to those 3 sections: forgiving others, asking for forgiveness, and forgiving the self. And we're going to journal about those 3 sections now, having just meditated. So now as we continue to journal, I'm going to give a few more minutes for journaling, for reflecting on how that meditation was and continuing in our 3 pillars of forgiveness. I also want to simultaneously give the opportunity to present questions or comments here in the YouTube chat. And what we will do is, as you type those in, I will respond to them one by one. If we were in person right now, we would have some substantive time for group conversation right now. And one of the benefits of meditating in a group setting is getting to hear about what other people are thinking or what they went through. And so I'm going to give you the opportunity now to share in the chat, and I will answer the questions or comments one by one. But also simultaneously, I'm going to be silent and give you the time to finish journaling too. But I just wanted to put that in for food for thought. So now I'm personally going to put aside the journal and pay full attention now to the chat. Again, inviting you, this is not a requirement, obviously, but inviting you to now utilize this space to ask questions, share comments, things for me to go off of here. And if you just share a comment, I'm just going to read the comment. But if it's a question, I will address the question and then answer it. And I do apologize again. I'm looking at the chat. My camera's here, but when I look away, I'm just reading here. David shared breathing in for forgiveness led to gratitude in the journaling. I'm super glad to hear that and really appreciate the sentiment. Amy asks, how do I process fear? Yeah, that's a really good question. And I don't think it's one that I have a concrete answer to, because I think it would depend on the content of the fear and the potential, like how grounded in rationality that fear is. Again, not to say that, not to judge fear as irrational, but some of our fear is actually very rooted in reality. But as a broad answer, and again, Amy, if you want to reach out personally and share where that fear is rooted in, I'd be happy to answer specifically. But what I would say in general is that fear is heavily tied to the psychological concept of uncertainty, right? It's the idea that we don't know or have control over how something is going to happen or over how something is. And that makes sense that that's scary, right? That things aren't the way in which we can control them to be. And so how do we process that? Well, I think it starts with coming to terms with the fact that we only have overt control over the individual foundation of our being, that externally the world is going to happen. And of course we can have a say in certain things, But I think we need to come to terms with the fact that uncertainty is a fundamental truth of existence. That then helps us to, when fear comes up and says, oh, I'm not sure about what's going to happen, well, it becomes expected. Now, how do you process that? I don't know. I don't know exactly. I think, though, coming to terms with the fact that uncertainty is a fundamental truth of existence is a place to start. From there, then it depends on what the content of the fear is. A couple people just thanking for the session. You are so welcome. Appreciate it. I am going to leave another minute here just for anyone else to type in. Oh, we had one amazing meditation experience. Particularly love the mantra and the visualization. I'm super, super glad. I appreciate that. And that was my mom. Thank you, Mom. I'm going to leave another minute for anyone else to share, comment in here. Also, simultaneously, I'm going to share my contact information if you want to share something privately, but not publicly here. But again, leaving another minute here for anyone else to share, type, respond to those questions, add a comment. Okay, well, that appears to be it on the comments and questions. I hope that this opened up some cognitive space for you to continue contemplating throughout this day. If you had something that you wanted to privately share or privately ask, please feel free to utilize the email and the phone number I shared here in the chat. Happy to discuss how this meditation went for you today. And again, I want to remind that if you were thinking a lot during this meditation, that that's completely normal, that nonetheless, the responding to thoughts as thinking is what makes you stronger. It's not thinking that's the goal. It's responding to the thoughts when you are thinking. It's not getting to lift the weight. It's lifting the weight and being aware of how that's strengthening your body. And so just by being here and participating, you strengthen your mental muscles. I want to thank you for taking the time out of your day to join. I hope that this served you in some way, shape, or form. And onwards and upwards. Take care and much gratitude.